It's 5 o'clock in the morning when I hear Sienna's voice piercing through the silence of my Greenwich neighborhood like a siren cutting through fog. Amora! Amora Harlow! Open this door right now! I'm sitting in my living room, dressed in a cream cashmere sweater and tailored slacks even at this ungodly hour. My hands are trembling slightly as they grip a porcelain teacup that's gone cold 20 minutes ago. I haven't taken a single sip. The tea was just something to hold on to while I waited for this moment that I knew would come. Yesterday afternoon, I changed every single lock in this house. The front door, the back door, the side entrance near the garage, even the door that leads from the mudroom to the garden. Every single one. The keys I gave my son 2 years ago when I thought we were becoming closer after his father's death don't work anymore. They're useless pieces of metal now. The screaming outside continues. I know you're in there! Don't ignore me! Sienna sounds absolutely unhinged, her voice cracking with rage. I hear her kicking my front door, that $12,000 hand-carved oak door that Richard and I picked out together 15 years ago when we renovated. Each thud makes me flinch, but I stay seated. Eleanor's hand finds my shoulder, warm and steady. She's been here since 11 last night, refusing to leave me alone. She's going to wake the entire street, Eleanor says quietly. But there's no judgment in her voice, only concern. My best friend of 25 years knows exactly what this moment means, what it's costing me. Let her, I whisper back, though my throat feels tight. Let everyone see what they've become. Then I hear the sound of tires screeching in my circular driveway. A car door slams with such force I can hear it from inside. My son, Damien. The baby boy I carried for 9 months, the child I stayed awake with through countless fevers and nightmares. The young man I put through college and supported through every failed venture. My only child. Mom! His voice joins Sienna's, and somehow it's worse. So much worse. Mom, open this door. I know you changed the locks. How does he know already? Did he try to come in last night after I went to bed? The thought makes my stomach turn. How many times has he been sneaking into my house without my knowledge? Eleanor, I don't know if I can do this, I say, and I hate how weak my voice sounds. I built a multi-million-dollar consulting business from absolutely nothing. I came to this country with $200 in my pocket and a dream. I've negotiated with CEOs and investment bankers and never once shown fear. But this, facing down my own son? It's breaking me in ways I never imagined possible. Yes, you can, Eleanor says firmly. And you will. Because if you don't, they'll destroy everything Richard worked for. Everything you worked for. She's right. I know she's right. But knowing and feeling are two different things entirely. Vou entrar de todo jeito. Damien is screaming now, switching to Portuguese in his rage. He learned it from Richard's Brazilian mother, my beloved mother-in-law who passed 5 years ago. She would be horrified to see what her grandson has become. This house is mine by right. By right. By right. The words echo in my head like a slap. I paid for every square inch of this house, every marble countertop, every crystal chandelier, every blade of grass and the perfectly manicured lawn. Not his father's money, though Richard contributed. My money. The money I earned working 18-hour days while Damien was growing up in boarding schools because I was too busy building our future to be present for his childhood. And that's the guilt he's been using against me for 3 years now, ever since Richard died and left me vulnerable and desperate for family connection. Every time I said no to another outrageous request, Damien would look at me with those blue eyes he inherited from his father and say, "You were never there for me growing up, and you're still not there for me now." It worked. God help me. It worked every single time until 1 month ago. Something heavy crashes against the door. They're trying to break it down. My $12,000 door. The entryway to the home I built. I stand up so fast that tea sloshes out of the cup I'm still holding, splashing onto the Persian rug beneath my feet. A 200-year-old rug that Richard's mother gave us as a wedding present. That's it, Eleanor says, and I hear steel in her voice. Let them in, Amora. Let them come in and face what they deserve. I look at my best friend. At 62, Eleanor Ashford still has the commanding presence she cultivated over 40 years as one of Boston's most feared tax attorneys. Her short gray hair is perfectly styled even at this hour, and she's wearing one of her signature cashmere shawls over silk pajamas. She stayed the night specifically because she knew this confrontation was coming. She knew, and she refused to let me face it alone. "Are you sure everyone's in place?" I ask, setting down the teacup before I drop it. "Marcus arrived 20 minutes ago. The officers have been parked down the street since 4:30. Everything is ready, Amora. The question is, are you ready? Am I? Can any mother ever be ready for this? To look her son in the eyes and tell him no for the final time? To cut off the child she brought into this world? But he's not a child anymore. He's 32 years old. And the woman he married, that Sienna Kavanaugh who saw my son as nothing more than a meal ticket to the lifestyle she always wanted, she's 28. Both of them are adults. Both of them made choices. Both of them are about to face consequences. Please." Now Sienna's voice changes, becomes pleading. "Amora, please, we need to talk to you. It's an emergency." An emergency. Of course it is. Everything is always an emergency with them. The emergency when they needed $50,000 for cryptocurrency investments that disappeared. The emergency when Sienna needed a new car because her 3-year-old BMW wasn't fitting for the wife of a Harlow. The emergency last month when I discovered my son had forged my signature to take out a $400,000 loan using my house as collateral. My house. This house that I bought with money I earned scrubbing floors at night while going to real estate classes during the day 34 years ago. That was the moment everything changed. When I saw my signature on those bank documents, perfect, except for one tiny detail that my accountant caught, I felt something inside me finally break. Not break down, break free. 3 years of manipulation, 3 years of guilt trips, 3 years of financial abuse, all crystallized into one single moment of absolute clarity. I walked into Eleanor's house that afternoon with the forged documents in my hand, and I said, "Help me." Just those 2 words. And my best friend, who had been watching this slow-motion car crash for years, who had bitten her tongue 1,000 times out of respect for my grief and my hope that Damien would change, she finally said what I needed to hear. "It's time to stop being his mother and start being your own protector." Now, standing in my living room at 5 in the morning while my son tries to break down my door, I understand what she meant. Maternal love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It doesn't mean letting yourself be destroyed so your child can live comfortably. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their choices. "I'm ready," I tell Eleanor, and I'm surprised to find that I mean it. I walk toward the front door, my footsteps steady on the hardwood floors that Richard and I refinished together during our first year in this house. Each step feels like walking toward an execution, except I'm not sure who's being executed. The son I knew, or the woman I used to be who would do anything to keep her family together. Through the beveled glass panels beside the door, I can see them. Damien is holding something. Looks like a crowbar. Where did he get a crowbar at 5 in the morning? Did he plan this? Come prepared to break into my home? Sienna is beside him, her platinum blonde hair extensions disheveled, her makeup smeared. She's wearing pajamas under a designer coat. They really did just rush over here the moment they realized their keys didn't work. My hand touches the new deadbolt. I installed it myself yesterday with Eleanor's help, watching YouTube videos and laughing nervously as we fumbled with the drill. Now my fingers rest on the cold metal, and I think about all the moments that led here. Every missed recital because I was closing a deal. Every parent-teacher conference Richard attended alone because I was on a business trip. Every choice I made that built our fortune but cost us presents. But those choices also gave Damien opportunities I never had. Private schools, college without debt, a house I bought him when he got married. A lifestyle he never had to work for because I worked for it instead. "Amora," Eleanor says softly behind me. "They need to see it all. Don't open that door until you're ready for them to see everything." I nod. She's right. This isn't just about opening a door. It's about opening the door to truth, to consequences, to the reality they've been avoiding while bleeding me dry financially and emotionally. I turn back to my living room. Marcus Chen, my attorney, is sitting on the sofa with his leather briefcase open on the coffee table. Documents are spread out in perfect order. 2 police officers are standing near the fireplace, young men who look uncomfortable being called to a domestic situation in this wealthy neighborhood. And on my 70-inch television screen, paused and ready to play, is security camera footage I installed last week showing Damien entering my house while I was at my book club, going through my office, searching through file cabinets. Looking for what? My will? Bank statements? Evidence of assets he could somehow claim? The banging on the door intensifies. "I'll break it down," Damien roars. "This is my house too." But it's not. It never was, and it never will be. Not after what they've done. Not after the lies, the manipulation, the theft. I take a deep breath, feeling 57 years of life experience settle into my bones like armor. I survived emigrating from Ireland with nothing. I survived building a business in a male-dominated industry. I survived my husband's death from cancer, holding his hand through every brutal treatment, every setback, every goodbye. I can survive this too. Let them in, I say clearly. Eleanor's right. They're going to get exactly what they deserve. I turn the new deadbolt. The sound seems impossibly loud in the quiet house. Then I turn the handle and pull the door open. The moment the door swings open, Damien and Sienna practically fall into my foyer, their momentum carrying them forward because they were pushing so hard against the door. But they stop immediately when they see what's waiting for them inside. The fury on their faces transforms into something else. Confusion first, then recognition, then fear. I watch my son's eyes dart from Marcus Chen, sitting calmly on my sofa with legal documents spread before him, to the two police officers standing by my fireplace, to Eleanor blocking any exit behind them, to the paused security footage on my television screen. His face goes from flushed red to pale white in seconds. But before we get to what happens next, you need to understand how we got here. How a mother and son, who once had everything, ended up on opposite sides of a door at 5 a.m, with police officers present and attorneys ready to press charges. 3 years ago, I was a different woman. 3 years ago, Richard was still alive, and our family still had its center. My husband was the heart of our little unit, the one who balanced my business-focused intensity with warmth and humor. He was the parent who attended Damien's school events when I couldn't, the one who remembered birthdays and anniversaries while I was closing million-dollar deals. When Richard got his cancer diagnosis, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, everything in our world shifted. We had 8 months with him after that diagnosis, 8 months of aggressive treatments that devastated his body while I watched helplessly. I'm used to solving problems. That's what I do. I identify issues and I fix them. But I couldn't fix this. No amount of money, no number of specialists, no quantity of prayers changed the outcome. Richard died in our bedroom upstairs on a Tuesday morning in March, with me holding his hand and Damien sitting at the foot of the bed crying. I thought grief would bring us closer, my son and me. For the first few months, it seemed like it did. Damien started visiting more often, 2, 3 times a week instead of the obligatory Sunday dinners we'd maintained before. He'd bring coffee and bagels, and we'd sit in the kitchen talking about his father. Those conversations felt like a gift, like finally, after all the years of distance created by my constant work and his boarding school education, we were building the relationship I'd always wanted. I should have seen it coming. Eleanor tried to warn me. 6 months after Richard's funeral, when Damien asked to borrow $10,000 for what he called a guaranteed investment opportunity, Eleanor pulled me aside at a charity gala and said, "Amora, he's taking advantage of your grief." I was furious with her. How dare she suggest my son was manipulating me? He was hurting too. He'd lost his father. Of course he needed support. I gave him the $10,000. Then a month later, he needed $30,000 for what he said was a medical emergency for Sienna, the girlfriend he'd been dating for 3 months. I found out later there was no medical emergency. Then, it was $50,000 for cryptocurrency investments that he promised would triple in value. They didn't. They vanished completely when the exchange collapsed. Each time I said yes, it got easier for him to ask again. And each time I hesitated, he knew exactly what to say. "Mom, you were never there when I was growing up. You were always working. Can't you be there for me now?" Those words cut deeper than any blade because they were partially true. I wasn't there for hundreds of small moments in his childhood. I was building our empire instead. Richard and I had agreed on that division of labor when Damien was born. Richard would be the present parent while I built the financial security. We'd made that choice together, both of us believing it was best for our family. But after Richard died, I couldn't defend that choice to our son anymore. I could only feel the guilt of every missed moment. Sienna entered the picture 10 months after Richard's death. I met her at a family barbecue Damien insisted on hosting at the house I'd bought him, a modest 4-bedroom colonial in Stamford that cost me $450,000. She was beautiful in an obvious way, with platinum blonde hair and a body she'd clearly worked hard to maintain. But there was something in her eyes when she looked at me, a calculating assessment that made me uncomfortable. "Your home is lovely," she'd said that day, but she was looking at my jewelry, my handbag, my clothes, appraising their value. "Damien has told me so much about your success. It must be amazing to have built such wealth." That should have been my first clear warning. Not "nice to meet you" or "I've heard wonderful things about you," just immediate focus on wealth. But I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was projecting my own business instincts onto a young woman who was probably just nervous meeting her boyfriend's mother. They were engaged 6 weeks later. 6 weeks. When Damien told me, I tried to express concern about the speed. "Sweetheart, you barely know her. Why not wait a year or two?" His face had darkened immediately. "Because I love her, Mom. Because unlike you and Dad, who waited until your careers were established before you had time for love, I'm choosing to prioritize my relationship. I'm not making the same mistakes you made." The same mistakes. My marriage to Richard, a partnership that lasted 24 years until cancer took him, was a mistake. That's what my son thought of the foundation of his entire existence. I went to their wedding 4 months later. A rushed ceremony at a boutique hotel in Manhattan that cost $60,000, which Damien asked me to pay for, because it would mean so much to have your support. I paid. I smiled in all the photos. I welcomed Sienna into our family. And I tried to ignore the voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like Eleanor saying, "This is going to end badly." The requests for money accelerated after the wedding. It wasn't borrowing anymore. It was demands disguised as entitlements. "Mom, we need a new car. Sienna can't be driving around in a used BMW. What will people think?" "Mom, we need you to pay for renovations on the house. The kitchen is outdated." "Mom, we need help with credit card debt. It's only $30,000 and you won't even miss it." I gave and gave and gave. Not because I believed their reasons, but because every time I considered saying no, I'd picture Richard's face during his last weeks, the way he'd held my hand and said, "Take care of our boy. He's going to need you." I thought I was honoring my husband's dying wish. I was actually enabling my son's worst impulses and his wife's greed. The final straw happened 4 weeks ago. My accountant, Patricia, called me on a Wednesday afternoon. "Amora, I need you to come to my office immediately. Don't tell anyone you're coming." The urgency in her voice terrified me. I drove to her office in downtown Greenwich with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Patricia had documents spread across her conference table when I arrived. Bank statements, loan applications, forged signatures, my signature, on papers I'd never seen before. "Someone applied for a $400,000 home equity line of credit using your house as collateral," she explained, her face grim. "The bank sent me the documents for tax purposes before processing. Amora, this signature isn't yours. It's close, but look at the R in your last name. You make that loop differently." I stared at the signature, at my name written in handwriting that was almost mine, but not quite, and I knew immediately who'd done it. There was only one person who had access to my personal documents, who knew enough about my finances to attempt this, who was desperate enough for money to commit fraud. My son. I couldn't breathe. Patricia got me water and made me sit down. "We need to report this," she said. "This is a federal crime. Bank fraud, forgery, identity theft." But I couldn't process the legal terms. All I could think was that my son, the baby I'd carried and birthed and loved more than my own life, had tried to steal my house. The house Richard and I built together. The home where we'd raised him. I went to Eleanor's house that evening. I didn't call first. I just showed up at her door with the documents in my hand and tears streaming down my face. She took one look at me and pulled me inside. I told her everything. Every loan, every manipulation, every guilt trip, and finally, the forged signature. When I finished, Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. "How much has he taken from you?" she finally asked. I'd never calculated the total before. I did the math in my head. Close to 400,000 over 3 years, not including the house I bought them, or the car, or the wedding. Eleanor's face went hard. And what has he given you in return? I opened my mouth to defend him, to say he was my son and that was enough. But I couldn't, because the answer was nothing. He'd given me nothing but pain and manipulation and exploitation of my grief. It stops now, Eleanor said firmly. Tomorrow, we change every lock in your house. We get security cameras installed. We notify the bank about the fraud, and we tell Marcus Chen to prepare documentation for a restraining order if necessary. I started to protest, but she cut me off. Amora, if this was anyone else, would you tolerate this behavior? If a business partner stole from you, would you give them another chance? She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing and accepting are different things when it's your child. I spent that whole night at Eleanor's house, and by morning I'd made my decision. I was done being manipulated, done being used, done letting guilt over my past choices destroy my present and future. Richard wouldn't have wanted this. My husband worked too hard building our life together to watch our son squander it all. The locks got changed yesterday. I didn't tell Damien, I just did it. And then I waited, knowing that eventually he'd try to use his key and realize he'd been locked out. Eleanor insisted on staying the night with me because she knew he'd come. She knew there'd be a confrontation. She was right about that too. Damien's eyes are locked on the television screen where his image is frozen mid-action, his hand reaching into my file cabinet. The timestamp shows last Thursday at 2:15 in the afternoon, when he knew I'd be at my monthly book club meeting. He's been caught, and he knows it. "What is this?" he manages to say, but his voice cracks. Sienna grabs his arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his jacket sleeve. "This," I say, keeping my voice steady though my heart is pounding, "is a conversation that's 3 years overdue." Marcus Chen stands up from the sofa, his movements calm and professional. "Mr. Harlow, Mrs. Harlow, I'm Marcus Chen, attorney for Mrs. Amora Harlow. These officers are here as witnesses, and for Mrs. Harlow's protection. I need you both to understand that you are being recorded right now." Sienna's head snaps toward the corners of the room, searching for cameras. She finds them. I had them installed last week in every room of this house after Patricia showed me those forged documents. Every conversation, every moment, all captured now. "You're recording us?" Sienna shrieks. "Without our permission? That's illegal." Eleanor steps forward, and there's something about her presence that makes Sienna actually take a step back. "Connecticut is a one-party consent state, dear. Amora can record any conversation in her own home. Perhaps you should have researched that before breaking in at 5 in the morning." "We didn't break in," Damien says quickly, desperately. "This is my mother's house. I have a right to be here." "You had a key," I correct him. Past tense. "A key that I gave you as a privilege, not a right. A privilege you abused repeatedly, as evidenced by this footage." I gesture to the television screen. "Would you like me to play it? Show everyone how you went through my personal files?" The color drains from his face completely now. Sienna's eyes dart between me and Damien, and I can see her calculating, trying to figure out how to spin this situation in their favor. "Mom, I can explain," Damien starts. And even now, even after everything, part of me wants to let him. Part of me wants to hear whatever story he's concocted, because maybe, just maybe, there's an explanation that makes sense. That makes this hurt less. But Eleanor's hand on my shoulder reminds me why we're here, why I changed the locks, why I spent 3 years hemorrhaging money and dignity. "No," I say firmly. "You can't explain. There is no explanation for forging your mother's signature to steal her house." Sienna gasps, a theatrical sound that might have worked on me months ago. "Steal? That's a horrible thing to accuse your own son of. Damien would never—" "Be quiet." The words come out harder than I intended, but I'm done with her performances. "You've been manipulating my son since the day you met him, Sienna. I know exactly what you saw when Damien introduced us. You saw money, security, a lifestyle you never earned but always wanted." Her face twists with rage. "How dare you? I love your son." "You love what my son can give you," I counter. "Or rather, what you thought I would give him to pass along to you. The Mercedes you demanded. The kitchen renovation. The designer clothes and jewelry. Did you think I didn't notice that every time Damien asked me for money, you just posted something on social media about what wives of successful men should have? Sienna's mouth opens and closes, but no words come out. Damien looks between us, and I can see him trying to decide whether to defend her or defend himself. Mrs. Harlow, Marcus says, drawing their attention, let me make the situation very clear. You and your husband committed or attempted to commit several crimes. First, the forged signature on the home equity loan application constitutes bank fraud and identity theft, both federal offenses. Second, the surveillance footage shows unlawful entry and potential theft of private documents. Third, your arrival here this morning, an attempt to force entry could be considered trespassing and attempted breaking and entering. She's my mother, Damien explodes. I have a right to see my own mother. You have no rights to enter her property without permission, Marcus continues calmly. You have no rights to her money, her assets, or her home. You are a 32-year-old man with no legal claim to anything your mother owns. I watch my son's face cycle through emotions. Anger, fear, desperation, and finally landing on the one he always uses when he's backed into a corner. Wounded innocence. Mom, please, he says, and his voice takes on that little boy quality that used to melt my heart. You don't understand. We needed that money. We have debts, serious debts. I was trying to protect you from worrying. By forging my signature? By stealing my house? I shake my head. Damien, I've given you over $400,000 in the past 3 years. Where did it go? Silence. He can't answer, because there is no answer that doesn't reveal the truth. The crypto investments that failed. The gambling debts I'm not supposed to know about. The lifestyle they've been living far beyond their means. 400,000? Sienna whispers, and I see genuine shock on her face. Did she not know? Did Damien not tell his wife how much he'd extracted from me? Yes, I say, looking directly at her. $400,000, plus the $450,000 house I bought them, plus the $60,000 wedding I paid for, plus the car, the furniture, the vacations, the credit card bills. So when you post on Instagram about how I'm a selfish mother-in-law who doesn't support family, remember those numbers. Sienna's face goes red, then white. She posted something last week. I saw it before I blocked her. A photo of someone else's luxury car with a caption about, some mothers-in-law understand that family means sharing blessings, with a sad face emoji. 12 of her 87 followers liked it. You've been stalking my social media? Sienna tries to sound outraged, but it comes out weak. Your social media is public, Eleanor interjects dryly. Perhaps you should have considered that before using it to harass your mother-in-law. I never harassed anyone. I just shared my feelings. Your feelings that Amora owes you a lifestyle you've never worked for? Eleanor's voice could cut glass. Your feelings that being married to her son entitles you to unlimited access to her bank account? That's not... I didn't... Sienna stammers. But Eleanor isn't finished. I've been watching this situation develop for 3 years now. I've watched you isolate Damien from his friends. I've watched you demand increasingly expensive gifts. I've watched you turn every family gathering into an opportunity to drop hints about things you want. And I've watched my best friend nearly destroy herself trying to fill a void in you that can never be filled because you don't actually love anything except money. That's not true! Sienna's voice rises to a shriek. You don't know anything about me, about what I've been through. Then enlighten us, I say quietly. Tell us about your difficult past that justifies treating me like a personal ATM. Tell us about the hardships that made you think it was acceptable to manipulate my grieving son into forging documents to steal my house. Sienna's mouth works, but nothing comes out. Because what can she say? That she grew up without money? So did I. That she had a hard childhood? So did I. The difference is, I worked for what I have. I didn't marry it and demand it as tribute. Damien finally finds his voice again. Dad would be ashamed of you right now. The words hit like a physical blow. I actually take a step backward. Eleanor's hand tightens on my shoulder, steadying me. Don't, Eleanor warns him. Don't you dare use Richard's memory as a weapon. But Damien continues, gaining confidence from my visible pain. Dad always said you worked too much, that you cared more about money than family. He told me that all the time when I was growing up. Your mother loves you, but she loves her business more. And now look at you, threatening your own son with police because of money. The room feels like it's spinning. Did Richard say those things? Did my husband, who always supported my career, who agreed to our division of parenting labor, did he resent me all along? Was I wrong about everything? Damien. Marcus's voice cuts through my spiral. Your father died 3 years ago and cannot defend himself against your characterization of his feelings. What I can tell you is that your father's will left everything to your mother with the explicit instruction that she use it as she saw fit. He did not leave you a separate inheritance. He did not establish a trust for you. He left you nothing directly because he trusted your mother's judgment about what you needed and when. I'd forgotten about that. In my grief, I'd forgotten that Richard and I had made those decisions together, that he'd agreed our son needed to make his own way in the world before inheriting wealth he didn't earn. That's because Mom controlled everything, Damien shouts. She always controlled everything. The money, the decisions, Dad's medical care. Stop. The word comes out of me with such force that Damien actually stops mid-sentence. Don't you dare rewrite history to justify your behavior. Your father and I made every major decision together, including the decision not to spoil you with inherited wealth. We wanted you to build your own life, find your own success. We failed in that goal clearly because instead of building anything, you decided to tear down what we built and take it for yourself. I didn't tear down anything. I just needed help. Help is asking for assistance once. What you did is exploitation. You used my grief over your father's death to manipulate me. You brought this woman into our family specifically because she would help you drain me dry. And when asking wasn't enough anymore, you committed fraud. Sienna makes a sound like a wounded animal. I am not this woman. I am your daughter-in-law. I am your son's wife, and I'm... She stops abruptly, her hand flying to her mouth. You're what? Eleanor asks sharply. Sienna looks at Damien desperately. He closes his eyes. Tell them, he says quietly. I'm pregnant, Sienna whispers. 2 months. The room goes absolutely silent. I hear the antique clock on my mantel ticking. I hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I hear Eleanor take a sharp breath beside me. A grandchild. I'm going to be a grandmother. And I feel absolutely nothing but a deep, aching sadness. Congratulations, I finally say, and my voice sounds hollow even to my own ears. That changes nothing about this situation. How can you say that? Sienna's eyes well with tears, and for the first time, they might actually be real. That's your grandchild, your flesh and blood. My grandchild, I repeat slowly, will have a trust fund established that they can access when they turn 25, provided they complete a college education and maintain steady employment for 2 years. The trust will provide for education, health care, and eventually a secure financial foundation. What the trust will not do is give you and Damien access to money to continue your lifestyle. You can't do that, Sienna shouts. That's our child. We're the parents. And you've demonstrated repeatedly that you cannot be trusted with money, Marcus says, pulling documents from his briefcase. Mrs. Harlow had me draw up these papers last week, coincidentally before learning about your pregnancy. The trust is irrevocable and managed by independent trustees. Neither parent has access to the principal. I watch this information settle over them. Damien looks like he's going to be sick. Sienna's tears are flowing freely now, but they're tears of rage, not sorrow. I knew it, Sienna hisses. I knew you were a cold, heartless bitch. Everyone said you were different, that you were this self-made success story, but you're just a bitter old woman who can't stand to see anyone else happy. Sienna, Damien says weakly. Don't. No. She needs to hear this. Sienna rounds on me, her pretty face twisted with hatred. You think you're better than everyone because you have money. You look down on me because I didn't build some empire. Well, you know what? I'd rather be poor than be you. At least I have a heart. At least I can love people without keeping a running tab of what they cost me. Are you finished? I ask calmly, though inside I'm shaking. No, I'm not finished. You want to know why Damien needs money? Why we have debts? Because your precious son has a gambling problem. He's been betting on sports online, losing thousands every week, lying to both of us about it. But sure, let's blame the poor girl from Detroit who married into your perfect family. Let's make this all my fault. Damien's face confirms it before he can say a word. The gambling. I knew about some of it, but not the extent. Not that it was still ongoing. How much? I ask him directly. Mom, I can explain. How much, Damien? He can't look at me. About $75,000, currently. $75,000 in gambling debts, on top of everything else. And you knew about this? I ask Sienna. I just found out last week, she admits, when someone showed up at our house asking for payment. Damien said you would help us, that you always help us eventually, that all we had to do was wait you out, and you'd give in like you always do. Wait me out. Like I'm a siege to be weathered, like my boundaries are temporary obstacles that will fall with enough pressure. Mrs. Harlow, Marcus says, we need to discuss next steps. I nod. I look at my son, this man I barely recognize anymore. You have a choice to make right now, Damien. The officers here can arrest you for the attempted fraud. I have all the evidence necessary to press charges. Or you can sign documents agreeing to never contact me again without my explicit permission, agreeing to repay the $400,000 home equity loan over 30 years at market interest rates, and agreeing to enter a gambling addiction treatment program. You're giving me an ultimatum? Damien's voice breaks. You're actually going to have me arrested if I don't agree to your terms? I'm giving you a chance to take responsibility for your actions. Something I should have forced you to do years ago. And what about the baby? Sienna demands. You're just going to abandon your grandchild? The baby will be well cared for through the trust. You'll receive a monthly allowance for childcare expenses deposited directly into an account that requires receipts for all expenditures over $100. The child will have everything they need. What changes is that you two will no longer have unlimited access to my resources. This is insane, Damien says, but he sounds defeated now, tired. This is consequences, Eleanor corrects him, something you've avoided your entire adult life. One of the police officers clears his throat. Ma'am, do you want us to proceed with an arrest? I look at my son. Really look at him. I see the little boy who used to bring me flowers from the garden. I see the teenager who called me from boarding school crying because he missed home. I see the young man who stood beside me at his father's funeral with his hand in mine. But I also see the man who forged my signature, who manipulated my grief, who brought a woman into our family specifically to help bleed me dry, who has a gambling addiction he's been hiding, who just admitted they were planning to wait me out until I surrendered. Damien, I say quietly, sign the documents, get help, be a better father than you've been a son. He stares at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nods. Marcus spreads the documents across my coffee table with practiced efficiency. 3 separate agreements, each one representing a severing of the relationship I thought Damien and I had. The repayment plan for the loan, the contact restriction order, the commitment to enter treatment. Damien sinks onto my sofa like a puppet with cut strings, staring at the papers as if they're written in a foreign language. I need a pen, he says hollowly. Sienna grabs his arm. Damien, no. You can't sign these. She's manipulating you. We'll get our own lawyer. We'll fight this. With what money? Damien asks, and there's something in his voice I've never heard before. Defeat, complete and total defeat. She's right, Sienna, about all of it. I've been lying to you, to her, to myself. I have a problem. I've had it for years, and I kept thinking I could fix it with one more loan, one more big win. But the baby will be taken care of. Better than we could take care of it right now, honestly. He looks up at me finally, and his eyes are red. I'm sorry, Mom. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't come close to making up for what I've done. But I am sorry. I want to believe him. God, I want to believe those words so badly. But I've heard apologies from him before. Sorry for needing the $10,000. Sorry for the $30,000 medical emergency that never happened. Sorry for the cryptocurrency disaster. Always sorry, but never changing. Sign the papers, Damien, I say, keeping my voice firm. Show me you're sorry by taking responsibility. Marcus hands him a pen. I watch my son's hand shake as he signs the first document, then the second, then the third. Each signature feels like a death, not of him, but of the dream I had of who he could be, of who we could be to each other. Sienna is crying now, real tears streaming down her face, smearing her mascara. "This isn't how it was supposed to be," she whispers. "We were supposed to be a family." "We were never family to you," Eleanor says, not unkindly. "We were an investment portfolio. The difference is that investments eventually run out when you keep withdrawing without contributing anything back." Sienna looks at me with something that might actually be desperation. "I know I've been awful. I know I pushed too hard, but I'm going to be a mother. Doesn't that matter? Can't we start over?" There's a small part of me that wants to say yes. The part that remembers holding Damien as an infant, promising him I'd always protect him, always love him, always be there. But being there doesn't mean enabling. It doesn't mean setting myself on fire to keep them warm. "You can start over," I tell her. "Both of you can. But not with me bankrolling your fresh start. You're going to have to build your own life now. Just like I did when I came to this country with $200 and a suitcase." "That's not fair," Sienna says, but the fight has gone out of her voice. "You had opportunities we don't have." "I created opportunities. There's a difference." I turn to Damien. "Your father and I worked 80-hour weeks for the first 10 years of our marriage. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and drove cars that barely ran. We ate pasta 6 nights a week because that's all we could afford while saving for our first investment property. You've never known that kind of struggle because we made sure you didn't have to. But somewhere along the way, that comfort became entitlement." Damien finishes signing the last document and sets the pen down. "I don't know how to do what you did," he admits quietly. "I don't know how to start from nothing." "You're not starting from nothing. You have a house I gave you. You have a college education I paid for. You have skills and intelligence and opportunity. What you don't have anymore is me as a safety net for your poor choices." Marcus collects the signed documents, checking each signature carefully. "These are legally binding as of this moment. Mr. Harlow, your first payment of approximately $1,100 is due on the 1st of next month. Miss Kavanaugh, the trust administrator, will contact you within 2 weeks regarding the setup of your child care allowance account. Mrs. Harlow has also indicated she's willing to pay for your addiction treatment program, Mr. Harlow, but that payment will go directly to the facility, not to you. There's a condition on that," I add. "You complete the full program. If you leave early, you pay them back. And I want weekly reports from your counselor." Damien nods slowly. He looks 10 years older than he did when he crashed through my door an hour ago. "Okay, when do I start?" "There's a facility in Massachusetts that has an opening next week. 30-day inpatient program. I've already researched it, already called them, already put down a deposit. Because even now, even after everything, he's still my son. Eleanor will drive you there if you agree to go." "What about me?" Sienna asks, her hand instinctively going to her still flat stomach. "What am I supposed to do for a month while he's gone?" "Get a job," Eleanor suggests. "I hear the salon you used to work at in Detroit is hiring. Or perhaps try something local. Greenwich has many opportunities for people willing to work." The look Sienna gives Eleanor could melt steel, but she doesn't argue. Maybe she's finally realizing that the easy money is gone, that she's going to have to actually earn a living now. "Can I say something?" Damien asks, looking at me. I nod. Dad would have done the same thing. If he were here, if he'd seen what I became, he would have cut me off too. I know that. I've always known that. I just thought I could play on your guilt enough to avoid consequences forever. The honesty of it hurts more than the manipulation did. At least when he was lying, I could maintain some illusion that he didn't know what he was doing, that he was somehow a victim of circumstance or bad influence. But he knew. He always knew exactly what he was doing. "Your father loved you," I say carefully, "just like I love you. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It doesn't mean sacrificing myself, so you never have to face reality. I know that now." He stands up, suddenly looking like he wants to leave. Can I call you? After treatment? When I've gotten help?" I consider this. Eleanor squeezes my shoulder, leaving the decision to me. "After treatment," I finally say. "After you've made 3 consecutive loan payments on time. After you've proven you can hold down a job for at least 6 months. Then we can talk about rebuilding something. But Damien, It will never be what it was. Those days are over. He nods, understanding, or at least accepting. That's fair. That's more than fair, actually. The police officers start moving toward the door, their presence no longer needed. Marcus packs up his briefcase. Eleanor maintains her position near me, my constant support. We should go, Sienna says quietly, tugging on Damien's sleeve. Before I say something else I'll regret. They walk toward my front door, that beautiful $12,000 door that Damien tried to break down just over an hour ago. At the threshold, Damien turns back one more time. I really am sorry, Mom, for all of it. I know, I say, and I do believe he's sorry. I'm just not sure sorry is enough anymore. The door closes behind them with a soft click that feels impossibly loud in the sudden silence. I stand there, frozen, staring at that door like if I look away, the last hour might somehow rewind itself, like I might wake up and find this was all a terrible dream. But the documents on my coffee table are real. Marcus is real. Eleanor's hand on my shoulder is real. And the hollowness in my chest where my relationship with my son used to be is devastatingly, irreversibly real. Sit down, Amora, Eleanor says gently, guiding me to the sofa. My legs fold beneath me without much input from my brain. I realize I'm shaking. Did I just do that? I whisper. Did I just cut off my only child? You set boundaries, Eleanor corrects firmly. There's a difference. Marcus is gathering his papers, but he pauses. Mrs. Harlow, I know this feels extreme right now, but I've been practicing family law for 23 years. What you did today probably saved your son's life. Addicts don't get better when they're enabled. They get worse until they hit rock bottom or die. You just forced him to hit bottom while there's still time for him to climb back up. I nod, because I know he's right intellectually. But emotionally, I feel like I've just amputated a limb. A necessary medical procedure that still leaves you less whole than you were before. I need to call the treatment facility, I say, focusing on practical matters because that's what I do. When things fall apart, I make lists and take action. Confirm the arrangements for next week. Already done, Eleanor says. I called them from your kitchen while Marcus was preparing the documents. Damien checks in Monday morning at 9. They're expecting him. Of course she did. Eleanor has been 3 steps ahead of everyone this entire time. While I was drowning in guilt and grief, she was building a lifeboat. The police officers come back from wherever they'd stepped away to give us privacy. The younger one, who can't be more than 25, looks uncomfortable. Ma'am, is there anything else you need from us? No, officer. Thank you for coming. I know a domestic situation at 5 in the morning in Greenwich isn't exactly how you wanted to start your shift. He actually smiles a little. My mom went through something similar with my older brother. Gambling addiction, stealing from her purse, manipulating her. She finally cut him off 3 years ago. He's been sober since and just got his electrician's license. Sometimes the tough love is the only love that works. His partner nods. We'll file our report. If either of them attempt to contact you against the restrictions in those documents, you call us immediately. Don't hesitate. Don't try to handle it yourself. Understood? Understood, I echo. They leave, and then it's just me, Eleanor, and Marcus in my living room at 6:30 in the morning. The sun is starting to come up outside my windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. A new day. Everything looks the same, but nothing is the same. Marcus closes his briefcase with a decisive click. I'll file these documents with the court today. You should have copies in your email within the hour. Mrs. Harlow, you did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you did. After he leaves, Eleanor makes coffee. I sit on my sofa and stare at nothing, my mind both racing and completely blank. I hear Eleanor moving around my kitchen, opening cabinets she knows as well as her own. We've been friends for 25 years. She was my maid of honor. I was hers at her second wedding. She held my hand through Richard's funeral, and I held hers through her divorce. She brings me coffee exactly how I like it, cream and 1 sugar, in the blue porcelain mug Richard bought me in Portugal 15 years ago. I wrap my hands around it, needing the warmth. Talk to me, Eleanor says, sitting beside me. I don't know what to say. My voice sounds strange, distant. I just legally separated myself from my son. I threatened him with arrest. I'm forcing him into treatment. I set up a trust that ensures he can't touch a penny of my money. What kind of mother does that? The kind who loves her son enough to stop him from destroying himself, Eleanor says without hesitation. The kind who's strong enough to do the hard thing instead of the easy thing. It doesn't feel strong. It feels like I'm breaking into 1,000 pieces. I know. Eleanor sets down her own coffee and takes my free hand. Amora, do you remember what you told me when I finally left Michael? When I was crying in your guest room at 2 a.m, convinced I was making the biggest mistake of my life? I shake my head. That was 8 years ago, and I don't remember my exact words. You said, sometimes love looks like goodbye. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to participate in their self-destruction. You were talking about my ex-husband's alcoholism, but it applies here too. I feel the first tear slide down my cheek, then another. Then I'm crying in a way I haven't cried since Richard died. Deep, wrenching sobs that come from somewhere primal and hurt like physical wounds. Eleanor pulls me against her shoulder and just lets me break. He tried to steal my house, I gasp between sobs. My son, the baby I grew inside my body. He forged my signature to steal the home Richard and I built together. I know, and I still love him. How can I still love him after what he did? Because you're his mother. That doesn't just switch off. Eleanor strokes my hair like I'm the child now, not the 57-year-old woman falling apart. But loving him doesn't mean letting him destroy you both. I cry until I have nothing left, until my eyes are swollen and my throat is raw and my coffee is cold. Eleanor doesn't try to stop me or soothe me with empty platitudes. She just sits with me in my grief, this grief that somehow feels worse than losing Richard, because at least when Richard died, I knew he loved me until his last breath. With Damien, I don't know what's real anymore. When I finally catch my breath, Eleanor gets up and returns with a box of tissues and a glass of water. I drink gratefully, my throat parched from crying. What if he doesn't get better? I ask quietly. What if the treatment doesn't work? What if he comes out in 30 days and goes right back to gambling? Then he faces the consequences of that choice. He makes the loan payments or defaults. He lives with the restrictions or violates them and faces legal action. Amora, you can't control his choices anymore. You can only control your response to them. That's terrifying. I know. Welcome to healthy boundaries. They're absolutely terrifying at first. Eleanor sits back down beside me. But you know what's more terrifying? The alternative. Continuing to enable him until there's nothing left. Until he's gambled away the house you bought him. Until Sienna leaves him because there's no more money. Until he's desperate enough to do something that puts him in actual prison instead of just threatened with it. I know she's right. I've seen that path play out with other families. The adult children who destroy their parents financially and emotionally. The enablers who give and give until they have nothing left, and the addict still isn't saved. What about the baby? I ask, my hand unconsciously going to my stomach, remembering what it felt like to be pregnant with Damien 33 years ago. What about my grandchild? The baby will be protected. You made sure of that with the trust. That child will have opportunities and security. What they won't have is parents who model financial irresponsibility and manipulation as love. Sienna hates me now. Sienna hated you before. She just hid it better when she thought she could still get money out of you. Eleanor's voice is matter of fact. That girl never wanted a mother-in-law. She wanted an ATM with emotional vulnerabilities she could exploit. The bluntness of it makes me laugh. A horrible wet sound that's half sob. Tell me how you really feel. I feel like I've been watching you suffer for 3 years, and I'm relieved we finally took action. I feel like I want to shake Damien until his teeth rattle for what he's put you through. And I feel like I'm going to personally ensure that treatment facility does their job, because if they don't, I'll sue them into oblivion. That's Eleanor, fierce and protective and absolutely terrifying when someone she loves is hurt. I don't know what I did to deserve a friend like her, but I thank God for her every day. My phone buzzes on the coffee table. A text message. My heart jumps, thinking it might be Damien, but it's from Marcus. The documents have been filed. Everything is official now. It's done, I say quietly, showing Eleanor the message. It's done, she agrees. Then, after a moment, how are you feeling? And I want a real answer, not what you think you should be feeling. I take a moment to actually assess. Past the grief and the shock and the exhaustion, I feel lighter? Is that horrible? My son just left here after I essentially disowned him and I feel lighter? That's not horrible. That's what happens when you stop carrying weight that was never yours to carry. Damien's addiction, Sienna's greed, their financial problems, their life choices, none of that was ever your responsibility. You just convinced yourself it was out of guilt. Guilt over not being there enough when he was young. Guilt that Richard never wanted you to feel. Amora, your husband and you made choices together about how to build your family and your life. He never resented your career. He was proud of you. I watched him brag about you at every social event we ever attended. He'd corner people and talk about your latest deal for 20 minutes until their eyes glazed over. The memory makes me smile despite everything. Richard really did that. He'd get so excited about my successes, sometimes more excited than I was. Damien said Richard told him I cared more about money than family. Do you think that's true? Did Richard say that? Eleanor is quiet for a long moment. I think Richard, like any parent, probably had moments of frustration when you missed a school event or had to travel during a holiday. And I think he probably vented those frustrations to Damien sometimes. Parents aren't perfect. But I also know that Richard spent the last 3 months of his life telling anyone who would listen that you were the love of his life and that he was grateful for every single day you built together. Damien weaponized whatever isolated comments Richard made, took them out of context. That's what addicts do. They find your weakest points and exploit them. It's not personal, even though it feels personal. It's just the nature of addiction. They'll say whatever they need to say to keep the money flowing. I set down my coffee cup and stand up, needing to move. My body is stiff from the tension of the last few hours. I walk to the window and look out at my property. The garden Richard and I designed together. The stone path where Damien took his first steps. The tree with the rope swing that's been there for 20 years, even though Damien hasn't used it since he was 12. I need to call the trust administrator, I say, shifting back into practical mode. Make sure everything is set up correctly for when the baby comes, and I should probably contact a family therapist, someone I can talk to about all of this. Both excellent ideas. I'll email you some names this afternoon. Eleanor joins me at the window. You're going to get through this, Amora. It's going to hurt for a while. You're going to have days where you question everything you did this morning, but you're going to get through it. How do you know? Because I know you. You survived emigrating alone at 23. You survived building a business in an industry that tried to keep women out. You survived losing Richard. You'll survive this too. I lean my head against her shoulder, grateful beyond words for her presence. Stay for breakfast? I don't want to be alone yet. I'll stay as long as you need, Eleanor promises. We move to the kitchen, and Eleanor starts pulling ingredients from my refrigerator while I sit at the island and watch. The normalcy of it, the domestic routine, feels grounding. Like maybe the world didn't actually end in the last 2 hours. Like maybe I can still have a life that includes morning coffee and breakfast with friends. Do you think he'll actually go to treatment? I ask, as Eleanor cracks eggs into a bowl. I think he will. Because for the first time in his life, he doesn't have another option. You closed every escape route. He either faces his problems or loses everything, including the house and the trust fund for his child. And if he goes through treatment and gets better, what then? Eleanor pauses her whisking to look at me directly. Then you decide if and how you want him back in your life. But Amora, even if he gets completely sober and turns his life around, you get to maintain boundaries. You get to protect yourself. You don't owe him unlimited access to your life or your finances ever again. The idea that I get to choose, that I have agency in this relationship moving forward, is both liberating and terrifying. For 3 years, I felt completely powerless, swept along by Damien's needs and Sienna's demands and my own crushing guilt. I want him to get better, I say quietly. Not for me, for him, and for that baby. Every child deserves parents who are present and healthy. That's a very generous wish considering what he put you through this morning. I'm his mother. Generous wishes are kind of part of the job description. I manage a weak smile. Even when he's acting like someone I don't recognize, he's still the little boy who brought me dandelions and called them flowers. That person is still in there somewhere. Maybe, Eleanor says, turning back to the eggs. But that little boy is gone, Amora. Who Damien becomes from here is up to him, not you. Your job now is to take care of yourself, to rebuild, to remember that you have value beyond being his mother. The eggs sizzle in the pan, filling my kitchen with familiar, comforting smells. Outside, my neighbors are starting their days, completely unaware that my entire world shifted on its axis in the pre-dawn hours. Life goes on. The sun keeps rising. The earth keeps turning. And somehow, impossibly, I'll keep going too. 3 months have passed since that morning. 3 months since I changed the locks and changed my life. The leaves outside my window have turned from summer green to autumn gold and red, marking the passage of time that somehow feels both impossibly long and incredibly short. Damien completed the 30-day treatment program. Eleanor drove him there on that Monday morning as promised, and she told me later that he cried the entire 2-hour drive. He called me once from the facility, a brief conversation where he mostly apologized and I mostly listened. I didn't know what to say to him. I still don't, really. But he completed it. That's something. He's been out for 6 weeks now, living in a sober living house in Hartford, working as an administrative assistant at a law firm. Eleanor checks on him weekly through her network of contacts. She reports back to me in careful, measured tones. He's attending meetings. He's making his loan payments on time. He hasn't gambled, as far as anyone can tell. I haven't seen him. He hasn't asked to see me. Maybe he knows I'm not ready. Maybe he's not ready either. Sienna had the baby 2 weeks ago. A girl they named Sophie, just like Eleanor told me they would. The trust administrator sent me a photo, a tiny wrinkled face with Richard's eyes, my granddaughter. I stared at that photo for an hour, feeling emotions I didn't know how to name. Sienna got a job at a dental office in Stamford, working reception. The trust sends her monthly child care allowances, and according to the administrator, she's been responsible about providing receipts. Small miracles. I don't know if they're happy. I don't know if they're struggling or thriving or somewhere in between. And I've had to make peace with not knowing, with not being involved, with letting them build their own life without my constant intervention. The Richard Harlow Foundation held its first major fundraising event last month. We raised $230,000 to support immigrant women entrepreneurs. 17 women have received grants and mentorship so far. I met them all, these women who remind me of myself at 23, full of hope and determination and fear. Helping them feels like healing something in myself. Patricia, my accountant, finally stopped giving me worried looks every time we meet. My finances are secure. The house is protected. The trust is established. Everything I built is safe now. Eleanor comes over for coffee every Sunday morning. It's become our routine. We sit in my kitchen and talk about everything and nothing. She never asks if I've heard from Damien unless I bring it up first. She's given me space to process, to grieve, to slowly rebuild myself. This morning, Sunday morning, 3 months and 2 weeks after everything changed, my phone rings. Eleanor and I are sitting at my island, croissants and coffee between us, discussing her upcoming trip to France. I look at the screen and my heart stops. Damien. Eleanor sees my face and immediately knows. You don't have to answer it, she says quietly. But I do. I know I do. I've been waiting for this call, dreading it and hoping for it in equal measure. Hello? My voice is steadier than I expected. Mom. Just that one word, and I hear everything in it. Nervousness, hope, fear, remorse. I know I'm not supposed to call without permission. I know the agreement says to wait until 6 months of payments, but I needed to tell you that Sophie was born. Your granddaughter. She's here. I know, I say gently. The trust administrator sent me a photo. Silence for a moment. Oh, right. Of course you know. He sounds disappointed, like he wanted to be the one to tell me. She's beautiful, Mom. She has Dad's eyes. I saw. My voice catches despite my best efforts. She's beautiful. I'm doing better. I'm working. I'm going to meetings. I haven't gambled in 93 days. He says it like he's counting every single one. Maybe he is. Sienna and we're trying to figure things out. It's hard, but we're trying. That's good, Damien. I'm glad you're getting help. Another pause. I know I can't apologize enough for what I did, for what I put you through, but I am sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I close my eyes, tears threatening. Eleanor's hand finds mine across the island, grounding me. I know you are. Do you think, his voice breaks, do you think someday you might want to meet Sophie? When you're ready? I'm not asking for anything else. I'm not asking for money or help or anything. I want my daughter to know her grandmother. When the time is right, if the time is ever right. The question I've been asking myself for 3 months. Do I want to be in their lives? Can I be in their lives without falling back into old patterns? Can I love my granddaughter without enabling my son? I think, I say carefully, that someday, yes, but not yet. I need more time, Damien. I need to see that the changes you're making are permanent, that you're doing this for yourself, not because I forced you to. I understand. He sounds like he's crying now. That's fair. That's more than fair. I'll keep making the payments. I'll keep going to meetings. I'll keep working on myself. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. Take care of your daughter, I tell him. Be the father she deserves. That's what matters now. I will. I promise I will. A pause. I love you, Mom. The words hit me like a physical blow. When was the last time he said that? Really said it, not as manipulation or preface to asking for money, but just as truth. I love you too, I whisper, because despite everything, it's still true. It's always been true. Love was never the problem. Boundaries were the problem. Enabling was the problem. Guilt was the problem. After we hang up, I sit there for a long moment, staring at my phone. Eleanor squeezes my hand. How do you feel? She asks. Sad, hopeful, terrified, relieved. All of it at once. I look at my best friend. Is that normal? Completely normal. You just had a conversation with your son where you maintained your boundaries while still leaving the door open for future healing. That's huge, Amora. I told him someday. Not now, but someday. And you meant it? I think about Sophie, about Richard's eyes in a new generation, about the possibility of redemption, of rebuilding something different from what we had before, something healthier. I think I did. Not the old relationship. That's gone forever. But maybe something new. Something with boundaries and honesty and mutual respect. That's all any relationship should be, Eleanor says gently. I look around my kitchen, this space that's been the backdrop to so much of my life. Richard and I danced here on our 10th anniversary. Damien did his homework at this island. I've made 1,000 cups of coffee in this room, planned business deals, entertained friends, lived my life. The house is quieter now, without the constant chaos of Damien and Sienna's demands. But it's not empty. It's peaceful. I've started painting again, something I gave up 30 years ago for lack of time. I've been traveling to visit the women the foundation supports. I've been having dinners with friends I'd neglected during those 3 years of crisis. I've been living my own life. You know what Richard would say if he could see you now? Eleanor asks, reading my thoughts like she so often does. What? He'd say he's proud of you, for doing the hard thing, for taking care of yourself, for being strong enough to let go so that maybe, someday, you could hold on to something real. The tears come again, but they're different this time. Not the wrenching sobs of 3 months ago. These are quieter, gentler. The tears of someone who's been through fire and is standing on the other side, scorched but surviving. I miss him, I say. Every day I miss him. I know you do. But I think I'm going to be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Eleanor raises her coffee cup in a toast. To eventually. I clink my cup against hers. To eventually. Outside my window, the autumn sun is climbing higher, burning off the morning mist. A new day, a new season. A new chapter in a life that's had so many chapters already and will have many more. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Damien will stay sober. I don't know if I'll meet my granddaughter next month or next year. I don't know if the story of my son and me has a happy ending or just an ending. But I know I'm going to be okay. I survived emigrating alone to a foreign country. I survived building an empire from nothing. I survived losing my husband. I survived my son's betrayal and addiction. I'll survive whatever comes next too, because I'm Amora Harlow, and survival is what I do best. But more than that, I'm learning to do more than just survive. I'm learning to thrive, to protect myself, to value my own peace as much as I value others' needs. The locks are changed, the boundaries are set, the foundation is secure, and for the first time in 3 years, I can breathe. Eleanor and I finish our coffee, make plans for lunch next week, and she heads home. I wash the dishes, tidy the kitchen, And then I do something I haven't done in months. I go upstairs to Richard's study, the room I've barely entered since he died. I open the drawer where he kept his journals, those leather-bound books where he wrote his thoughts and dreams and plans. I've been too afraid to read them, worried about what I might find. But today, I pull out the last one, the one from his final months, and I read, page after page of love, of pride, of gratitude for our life together, of hopes for my future after he was gone. And near the end, dated 2 weeks before he died, one paragraph that makes everything clear. I worry about Amora and Damien after I'm gone. Our son hasn't learned to stand on his own 2 feet, and she'll feel guilty enough to let him lean on her forever. My darling wife, if you're reading this after my death, please know, it's okay to let him fall. It's okay to save yourself. I love you both, but I love you most, and I trust you to know when enough is enough. Be strong, be happy. Live the life we built together, protected and cherished. That's all I ever wanted for you. I close the journal and press it to my chest, crying and smiling at the same time. He knew. Richard knew. And he gave me permission to do exactly what I did. Thank you, I whisper to the empty room, to the memory of my husband, to the ghost of our love that still fills this house. Thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth. The sun streams through the window, warm on my face. Outside, life continues. Inside, I continue too, changed, wounded, healing, but continuing. And that, I think, is enough.